mean, and let's be honest, the Ku Klux Klan is not labeled as a terrorist organization yet. So, do they still have legs within government? I
Not,
mean,
not, I don't think so.
you
I
don't
think
think
the
so?
KK.
You start off wide, right, with all these options and choices.
I'm looking for substance. So if you can't come with a substance level of conversation, I have no interest.
Okay.
You black man taking the liking of how my lifestyle is living and how I'm going, man, and you being intrigued, man. That's very humbling for me, man.
Good evening, sir. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, good evening, George. How you doing, man?
I am blessed. I'm blessed.
All right, man. I'm blessed too, man. Are you enjoying? Let me ask: are you in Texas or Memphis? Where are you at tonight?
I'm in Texas. I've been in Texas about the past 8 years. Travel back to Memphis every now and again, but I'm headquartered in Texas near Houston.
Okay, yeah, I know that you were there. I was hoping you'd be back in Memphis sometime during the show because I know.
Uh, if I have to go visit or something, I'm just careful traveling there, just with people there, and yeah, I'm not too popular there with certain politicians, so I have to be careful how I move.
No, I totally get it, man. I mean, yeah, yeah. Movement is important, especially for one's safety. According to
Right,
you, I think
right.
that's something that you got to be definitely cautious about. So, man, what's new? You got anything new on the radar?
Oh wow! I've been doing a couple other podcasts. I think I did two last night. Experiencing a lot of growth, and I'm trying to use this momentum as far as being the voice of Black conservatism to kind of help my God-given mission to address mental health, not only Black community but all communities. And I was just placed as city president for Turning Point, so I have to hire staff to do my stuff here, and I've got that going. I've got my book out. I've got my stuff on American Thinker. Looking at doing a couple podcasts with some influencers, so it's been very busy. Kind of going off about 2 hours a night of sleep, but it's
Oh,
all toward a goal. So
yeah, it sounds great, but at the same time, it sounds horrible, man. I'm sorry that you have to go through that, but then I'm
I'm
happy that you
having
have to go
fun.
through that.
I would not lie. I'm having a blast doing it. I mean, I really
Okay.
really am. So
Okay. Okay. So, Matt, tonight I wanted to kind of discuss with you something that's been on my mind for a very, very long time. And I'm not lying. And I really feel like with the case with Nolan Wells and with things brewing up like that, here we go again, a new tragedy, a new story. Um, and it's on the hearts and minds of a lot of people. But I got to be honest, before this ever even kicked off, I've been watching um, these stories that pop up. And for the most part, man, they seem to primarily pop up in the southern states of
right,
the USA. And they have to do with the potential, and I'm going to say potential because the facts are not there. And for the most part, I think a lot of us are looking at this as from a feeling standpoint, how we feel about the situation because the facts are
right.
just not there. But the potential for modern day lynchings that might have taken place in the United States. And I'm talking about past the 60s. I'm talking about past the 70s. I'm talking about within the last 20 years, there has been case after case after case of African Americans who have been found lynched. And in some cases, it's not lynched. Some cases, it's just they are found dead in some peculiar situations and circumstances. But it all revolves around either the region where lynching primarily took place, or those atrocious acts against African Americans historically have taken place, or they have involved uh, people of Caucasian descent. So I
Mhm.
wanted to ask you, especially being a turning point guy, especially being a conservative, me being that swing voter, like we always talk about. What do you think about that, man? Is there a potential for that to happen, or do you think it's just bullshit off the rip?
I'm not gonna say that. I'll say it like this. In my research about it, I think every case needs to be looked at individually. I haven't seen any evidence of there being a trend of it. That's
Mm-hmm.
not saying it hadn't happened, but until just logically, until you have a trend that kind of unifies different instances and makes it something that you can solidify and investigate as a phenomenon, we haven't had that yet. But I do think a lot of it plays into it. It's the imagery of the South. I mean, if you had the same amount of lynchings going on up north, it wouldn't get the same amount of attention because that's not really a hot button geographical area. With me being from Memphis and buying my first house in Mississippi, I'm kind of familiar with the area, and it does have very much have that reputation, and justifiably so. But I say until we can find some evidence that links this, we have to look at it for what it is and look at each case individually. Now, I know that some of the cases have not been lynchings. Some of them may have been suicides. A lot of them have just been people found dead in certain situations. And we know that with social media and popular culture, things lend themselves to hyperbole and rumor. So you have to discern all that. But I think that an investigation or people looking at it is a good thing to see if there's a phenomenon. And if there is, then what do you do at that point? If there is an issue where there is a uptick in lynchings, how do you address it? So that's a whole other issue, and that's the whole other side of the coin that we got to deal with. But in the meantime, look at each case individually, try to find a common thread. If there is none, then treat it individually.
Mm-hmm. But I get what you're saying on that 100%, and it sounds fair. But when we talk about the cases, when we talk about the evidence, when we talk about patterns, like you suggested, the problem is that what I found in many of these cases um, is that there's been a pattern of the police, for one, not investigating it off the top as being something that is an open investigation. Many of these cases within less than an hour or two of the investigation, or within a day, let's say an hour or two, within a day or so, couple days, it's already being closed out as a suicide. And
Right.
many of the circumstances surrounding it, like for instance, one gentleman was found hung with a dog chain around his neck, and he had already been witnessed having an argument with a white female's father, the night before, and then he was found with this dog chain around his neck. That doesn't seem like something that people would actually do, especially African Americans. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to not be on earth. I want to commit suicide. But it's another thing to wrap a dog chain around your neck. And then it's another
Well,
thing with the
yeah.
circumstances, with the circumstantial circumstances. I mean, I've always had this feeling that there is a undertone within our society and within white culture where this is still an acceptable pattern, man. And do you know anything about that? I mean, you're from the South. I'm not. Do
Right.
you have any history on that?
I mean, I never really. I mean, and I've dealt with people of all different cultures. This is to me never been a thing. I think a lot of it's more perception. I think a lot of it's for clicks because, like we both, I guess tend to agree there hasn't been a discernible pattern to the point that warrants investigation. So until we have that, we have to be careful where we get our news, sources from, too. And the thing about it is, I mean, I've been a mental health counselor. It's because the instance with the gentleman that hung himself with the dog chain, that's all circumstantial. Okay, I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. If you go into court of law with that, they're gonna say, "Well, that doesn't mean anything." But people that unalive themselves, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not like they say, "Well, I'm gonna use this nice towel." I mean, if you got a dog collar and you want out, you're gonna use a dog collar. If you got a shoestring, you're gonna use a shoestring. So, and as far as the figures, as far as hanging for our people unaliving themselves, the rate of between 20 and 2000 and 2020, the rates of hanging among black people that did do it rose 67%. So, I mean, you can't. I mean, if someone's really trying to kill themselves, and I've been a mental health advocate for 8 years running a nonprofit, if somebody's really trying to unalive themselves, then I got to say, well, I'm not going to hang myself because I'm black and this, I don't want to. I mean, once you want out, you want
Mm-hmm.
out. It really doesn't matter how you do it. So I've heard people say, well, if he's black, he wouldn't have hung himself. People, they unalive themselves. They ain't thinking about that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what about these other circumstances, like I just mentioned, police not actually doing thorough investigations. We've seen case after case where police have not necessarily done the best job. And for the most part, how many of these cases, they always come back as suicide. None of them come back with any particular evidence that can shine a light on anything besides suicide. And I mean, I think to me, that's a problem. I mean, if it's not a thorough investigation, it's not a thorough investigation. I think that, for on one end, I do understand what you're saying where, a black person found hanging, it's easy, especially in the South, to think like, oh, okay, there was something racial related. But I think a lot of the family's issues and a lot of the community's issues come from these lackluster investigations that are, one, done within that own community. I mean, and let's be honest, the Ku Klux Klan is not labeled as a terrorist organization yet. So do they still have legs within government?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't get it. Why? Do you want the truth, or do you want, what kind of answer do you want? The truth, of course. Here's the truth. Okay.
You said yourself, like, it's more about substance.
Literally my everyday life when I wake up, the things I go through, the things I do, I'm definitely gonna start streaming and giving y'all the rawness, man.
This thing is very real. It's real, but the thing is, people who do this for real,
it seems that we only come together when it's something negative. Let's try to do something positive. I think we need to get back to more of that instead of the reaction to something.
Now y'all come at you and sit your hands down. Let me tell you what's wrong.
They don't think they need it.
You begin to start understanding, like, this is what I like, this is what I want. You start
I think what David Duke was kind of ostracized years ago. It kind of took the teeth out of the KKK. Not saying they don't exist. Not saying that at all now, but they don't have the reach that they used to have. In fact, a lot of their endeavors have been funded by the Southern Poverty Law Center, so that's where they're not classified. They're not deemed as a threat. If they're right or wrong, I don't know. I don't hang out with KKK members, so I wouldn't know. I think as far as the investigation, now I'm not being naive. Now, if you're talking about police entities in Mississippi covering or investigating black lynchings to the degree that it's just going to satisfy people, it ain't going to happen. Because the thing is, when you see a lynching of a black person in the South, it's almost as though your default emotion is going to be, this is conspiratorial, and no outcome is going to satisfy you to a degree other than, hey, this is what it is. So a lot of those times, it may be the person may have left a suicide note. There may have been things that don't come out in the media because they typically investigate one social media in terms of unaliving and different things. So that may be resulting why the conclusions are manifesting themselves as suicides. They may be what they are. But I think that we need to avoid hyperbolic thinking and stop grouping things together when it's convenient to create a narrative. So I say, take every case as individual. If you see a trend that's discernible, then you investigate it on that level. But unless it warrants it, you have to kind of take a lot of stuff with a grain of salt. So, I mean, like I said, when I remember hearing about them more and more a couple years ago, and I did research. I talked to other nonprofits about the phenomenon of black people unaliving themselves with that method, and it happens, and I think anytime you see that, it's going to provoke a certain emotion in people, and it's just kind of just is what it is. I'm not saying it's not invalid, but you can't substantiate it either necessarily.
Man, but I mean, there has been some situations with the police, especially in the South, where cover-ups, when it comes to the killings of black people, have actually been have came to that these incidents were covered up by the police. Primarily, it was a black gentleman who was chased. I can't remember his name. Maybe you do. He was in Mississippi. I think his last name was Green or something to that nature.
I actually discussed that case, and like
that was a pure cover up, though.
Right.
I mean,
and it was. I remember some of the details about that. And the thing is, those things happen. But the best thing I think that we can do is call attention to those specific instances and bring attention to those. But I think when we start taking one instance and painting with a broad brush without having our figures in line, we kind of do disservice to the original case. I think that a lot of times the South gets a more or less stereotype for being purely racist, but I've been all over the country. There's racism everywhere, and some of it up north is worse. I've encountered more racism in quote unquote liberal places than I have the South. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. So I think the perception may hurt the cause, but like I said, I'm not saying these things don't happen, but we have to investigate them judiciously and not let ourselves get triggered to the point where it clouds how we move.
But I mean, wouldn't you want to kind of have like at least a mindset, since you know that the history of the United States, I mean, 4,000 lynchings since 1870, right?
Right, right,
With the last well-known lynching being less than 40 years ago.
right,
Okay. And the
right.
rest is just like you said, okay, we got to take it with a grain of salt. We can't necessarily assume that these things are taking place. We can't let it control how we move. I mean, isn't it okay to kind of just think like, hey, this is a potential issue that potentially needs some type of, it needs light shed on it. People need to discuss this. You at least need to be aware of the history and potentially these cases, because I mean, they do impact communities. And I know people say like, okay, well, the black community does a lot of killing on itself. That's always the straw man argument, is to move it and be like, okay. But I mean, lynchings are heinous, man. I mean, that's a part
Right.
of the pain that comes from our own history. So, I mean, if you're not doing a thorough investigation, man, I mean, my thoughts on it is honestly, and this is one thing that I am totally adamant about, is that I really, and I know this is my feelings, but my feelings is that there is a group of people in the southern states, and I don't know what that group is. I don't know where they come from. I'm suspecting that they come from the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacy culture and things like that. That there is people there who do not mind seeing a black man or a black woman being lynched.
Of
And
course
I
not.
mean,
But that's all over the country.
some of these
That's
people
not
are
just the
okay with
South.
that, though. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
something that just goes away.
no, I mean not, but I think you can't operate on the notion of thinking and suspecting you don't have evidence. Until you have evidence, it's just a rumor, it's just a notion, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't think like that, because we're all gonna. I mean, if I hear about a lynching anywhere, the
Mm-hmm.
first thing I'm gonna think is, well, were they black? White people did it. That's just gonna be
Mm-hmm.
instinctual. It's almost like a reflex. But I'm saying once you get over that emotional reflex and being triggered, then you have to rely back on logic and use your investigative mind and start building cases. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just for the police. I mean, if people, everything that happens, people want to come out and say, well, this was this, but they never have facts and figures. Get over your emotion and then start finding your facts and substantiate something. I'm not saying it's not happening, but I'm not seeing in investigations. Now, here's what I do think will be appropriate. There is a
Okay.
problem with not just police and local municipalities across all across the country and the world, maybe haphazardly investigating crimes involving brown people. So what we need to do in our communities is try to build better relationships with the police on the individual level in our communities, since they patrol and protect it, and try to put in more community oversight boards. Try to get some extra eyes on things, not from a biased standpoint, but I think the extra kind of look over the shoulder helps keeps them honest. But I do think a lot of it is people right now, especially over the past year, are overly emotional about anything involving black people, to the point where it's sometimes you want to be like, hey, slow down. Let's back this up. I know you're in your feelings. I know it's a lot going on, but let's look at facts so we can, handle this the right way and not end up in a situation where it becomes a powder keg of emotion and becomes dangerous, because when that happens, it never benefits us at all.
I totally get that. And I do understand what you mean by having evidence and not just being emotional. But there are some sites and there are some groups that are tracking modern day lynchings. And one that I found, have you ever heard of the Crimson Report?
I have heard of them, yes.
Okay, I mean, because according to them, they are tracking close to 70 potential lynchings, and the problem is that when they go for evidence, when they go for the release of information, and they ask for it from those local police departments, that information is held or it's being, cut off and saying like it's still being investigated while you've already canceled the investigation and said that this person was committed suicide. So I mean, there are bodies of knowledge out there to support these feelings that black people feel. I mean, and when we talk about 70 lynchings, then when we look at some of these cases with black people, I mean, like I said, some of the circumstances, I mean, it's just worth looking at, man. I mean, it's something that I
Yeah,
want to,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we have black sons, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
we have kids, and I can honestly say that there is a fear of when your children go with, hate to say it, but I have that feeling too. Let me just say this because, yeah, I have that same feeling too when my kids go anywhere, but particularly when my kids are around a group of white people and those people are not like the same type of normal culture that I have. Say, for instance, they are very Southern white people. It's a whole group of them and they're having a great time at some big bonfire. My kids want to go. There is that fear in the back of my mind. I'm not saying that it's rational and I'm not saying that anything can happen because my children do have white friends. I have white friends. I have great white friends, but there's always that thing that sits in the back of your mind like, man, I hope nothing happens. But like I said, that same feeling happens if my kids go to a house party with a bunch of black kids. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But that fear of, our history definitely plays into that. And I mean, it's tough, man. I mean, it's just like, what do you do? But I did want to raise
Uh,
this. I did.
right.
Go ahead, please. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, like you said, it happens no matter who they're with, and I think the flavor may be change may be different, but it still tastes the same, so to speak. And if my kid were to go somewhere with a bunch of puppies, I'd be worried. So I definitely get that, and I definitely get I definitely get the historical context of it, and it's okay. The thing is be aware of the historical context and investigate it as such. But if you let it, if and what I'm seeing is not from you, but just in the
No,
way
no,
I'm
no,
seeing people
please.
move.
No.
Yeah, the way I'm seeing people move on social media and things. I mean, the asinine, insidious, stupid things I'm hearing some of my people say. It's like, are you
Mm-hmm.
even living in reality? And like when I hear, and it happens on the right and the left. I hear from white people and black people. You can tell the ones that never dealt with anyone of another culture. Having a white coworker is not knowing a white person. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
really, even having a white neighbor is not knowing a white person. Unless you've known white people to the point where y'all grew up together and spent holidays at each other's house and know each other's families, you really don't know a white person. You know what I'm saying? Just like they really don't know a
Right.
black person. Your black coworker that you've known for 30 years, Ralph the nice guy, you don't really know him. So I think we get into the mindset of thinking America is such a melting pot, but it's like melting a bunch of cheap cheese that doesn't melt together. Yeah, we still have echo chambers and pockets. Yeah, I can live on the same block as you, but we're really not interacting. So when people use that term melting pot, I'm like, it's not coming
Mm-hmm.
together very well. And I think that's what a lot of problem comes from. Not saying those things don't happen, but we're really not as integrated as we think we are, and we're
Right.
starting to see results from it. In terms, you've always seen it in terms of white nationalism and things like that, but now you're really starting to see this kind of black, whatever it is, this racism and black nationalism. It's really just two sides of the same coin, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just that right now with so many hot button issues and people seeming so emotional, and it's like it's almost justified by some people. So I think we're just seeing the tit for tat. I think we're seeing the pendulum swing the other way in terms of racism. I think we're seeing the pendulum swing the other way in terms of a lot of things. But we need to take this opportunity to examine it, readjust, and see what we can do. Maybe for some people it may be segregation. Maybe the way some people feel, maybe they do need to go to Africa or some other country. I mean, it's just what it is at this point. But there is no real black unity, no real black community, no real sense of anything based on race. And I think a lot of people are using their race as religion. And if you want to make racial religion, I just stay an atheist. I don't need it. I I,
So what do
I
you?
I align with I align with values and ideology. Because if
Mhm.
anytime you rely on race alone and not value the individual narrative and identity, you just basically uniting on bullshit.
But I mean, there is a white identity.
Oh yeah, there's a black identity.
There is a white history. There is a white
Right,
culture that
right.
you don't necessarily fit in when it comes to values. I mean, of course, all people. I mean, this is every group of people have certain sets and values, and oftentimes
Right.
those values cross across groups.
But see, the
But
thing about being a
there is
conservative
a
is
particular identity with white
uh
people that black people do not fit into. That's what I'm getting
oh,
at.
that's true. That's true. And the thing is, that's because when you align on race, that's when you're gonna have that problem. See, I don't align with
Mm-hmm.
people on race. I align with ideology. Conservatism is not based on race. I know Asian conservatives. I know conservatives all over the world. I know white conservatives, black conservatives, Latino conservatives, which there are a ton of. That's what I choose to align with because that's
Mm-hmm.
something that's going to substantiate change. Now, of course, there are some things in every culture that we don't identify with. But what I'm saying, see, here's the thing: if I align purely by race, I'd be supporting people that I think are reprehensible. Then I personally would be co-signing with people whose values I don't agree with. And
Mm-hmm.
what's more important to me, aligning by race or aligning by my values, by my Christian values, by what's important to me. Now, I do have a tremendous amount of black conservative followers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, don't think that there are only a few of us. 20, almost a quarter of black men voted for Trump last election. So, I think what part of the
But that
problem
doesn't
is
mean they
too.
were conservatives, though. I mean, they could have been swing voters, right?
They could have
He
been, yeah, they could
won.
have been sweet voters, but
Yeah.
the thing is, there are far more, especially black conservatives, than people realize. Far more, and I think a lot of them aren't vocal for reasons that we discussed before, as far
Mm-hmm.
as dealing with the community and all that stuff. So, it's just kind of is what it is, and there's so many races, and we're such a hodgepodge genetically of race. You
Mm-hmm.
can't, in about 50 years, you won't be able to say who's black or white or who's Latino or anything anymore. Everybody will be mixed with something.
But
So,
maybe, but I mean, maybe that's where the fear on the other side of it, and I mean, white culture, which brings on white supremacy. Not saying that that culture itself
mhm,
is the controlling mechanism for white supremacy. We all know that's a bunch
right.
of dumbass people who come together and
Yeah,
think that,
right.
their race is superior and things like that. But at the same
Yeah,
time, that is that fear that brings about certain issues where there's racial tensions, where like you could see like this group is this fearful of African Americans, maybe their
mhm,
children looking like us in the future, maybe their daughters dating, and creating black children. There is that fear there that creates those situations where you could see like these groups coming together and
right,
kind of, uh, uh, to commit some of these acts. I mean, it's not outside the range of possibility that a group of white people can come together and say we want to preserve our heritage. And
right.
if my daughter's black boyfriend thinks that he's going to impregnate her, I would rather hang him.
I don't get it. Do you want the truth or do you want what kind of answer do you want?
The truth, of course.
Here's the truth. Okay.
You said yourself, like, it's more about substance than
Literally my everyday life when I wake up, the things I go through, the things I do, I'm definitely finna start streaming and giving y'all the rawness, man.
This thing is very real. It's real, but the thing is, people who do this for real,
It seems that we only come together when it's something negative. Let's try to do something positive. I think we need to get back to more of that instead of the reactions of some
All y'all come at you and sit your ass down. Let me tell you what's wrong.
They don't think they need it.
You begin to start understanding like this is what I like, this is what I want. You start symbolically. I mean, it
Yeah,
happens.
symbolically, yeah. I mean, but I see it with black folks. I've seen it really bad in Asian families, and you know what you see in Muslim countries. They do honor killing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's not something that's just exclusive to white nationalists, and that's not excusing it. But I'm saying I've seen it
Mm-hmm.
more in a more virulent form in minorities.
Yeah, but we see it.
So,
We see it. There's
well, if you don't,
evidence of
but
it.
here's the
It's
thing:
not
if you're not,
hidden.
well, here's the thing: they're not hiding it either, and I don't think it's as many as people think it is. And I think, you know, here, every race has its pockets of xenophobia and
Mm.
ethnocentrism. That's just American culture. But I think at this point, to shout out one more without recognizing and calling attention to each individual one does a disservice to the cause, which should be eliminating it as in general. And you're not going to. You still have race hustlers like Al Sharpton, and you still have the Dr. Umars who kind of say the same thing, but it's
I mean,
accepted because they're
but
brown. You
Trump's
know,
a race hustler too.
they're all race hustlers because you know why? Divisiveness is popular. That's the
Hmm.
thing. We love it. I mean, look what we're talking about now. You
Well,
know,
I'm
we love
talking
that
about
stuff.
it because it's a thing that I've watched over the years.
Right,
It's story,
right,
and it's not just one story. The first
right,
story,
right.
first few stories, I'd be like, okay, I get it. But there is a pattern. Every couple of years, there are at
Mhm.
least 3 to 4 homicides that are called suicides. Well, I'm going to say
Right,
that they seem like they are more than just suicides, okay? That they could
right.
potentially be homicides where a black person is found hung. I mean, it was 2 boys who went missing last
Hmm.
year. I think they both were hung. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers. I had a long week, whatever. But I mean, we are seeing some type of pattern, and it is something to pay attention to. Um, I, 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 I don't know how else to think about it, man. I
Well,
just
this
know.
what I think is, yeah.
Go ahead.
This
No,
is
go
what I
ahead.
think. I think this is my personal opinion. To
Hmm.
me, any instance where a black person is found lynched, it should not be handled by local authorities. I think it should be held up to federal investigation under
Now
the
we talking.
DOJ as a potential hate crime. I feel like if you have a black person lynched, the local police say, "Hey, call the feds. I ain't dealing with this," and let it get a more thorough investigation. I
Hmm.
think that's what correct. I think in certain cases it should actually jump over the local municipalities and go straight federal. So that's what
Okay.
I would like. To me, that's a better solution than what we've been doing. So if you have a black person that's lynched, hell, if you got a black person holding the shoestring when they pass, let it go
Hmm.
federal. Let it go federal. Let it get that prominent so it can be investigated more thoroughly. And if it's found to be something nefarious, then yeah, prosecute as
Well,
a hate crime.
let me ask this then. Why would you feel that it would need to go to that federal level? Is that because you potentially may think that there's possibly corruption within the police department from white supremacy?
No, no, I just think it'll keep everybody more satisfied. I think I think it'll eliminate a lot of stuff. I think it'll eliminate a lot of steps. I think even if that were to happen, I don't think it'll change the ratio of necessarily of them being ruled as self unalivings. But I think it'd just be more transparent. I think the problem is that we don't have a lot of transparency in the government or from police or things like that.
Hmm.
So that causes a lot of problems and misinformation just in things I've experienced in dealing with people. And people have to understand too, you're not necessarily, unless you want to go file a FOIA, which you can, Freedom of Information Act on these cases. There are a lot of things as far as investigations that are going to be redacted. That's not unusual. That happens in most investigations, especially sensitive ones. So, if you get a form and you see so and so is blacked out, don't think that somehow someone covering something up. That may be for many different reasons.
Yeah, it could be for many different reasons. And it also could be for that particular reason, too. I mean, I'm just kind of getting the feeling that if there is a such thing as white supremacy, okay, if there is a such thing as hate groups that are formed through white supremacy, like the Ku Klux Klan, like many other organizations that revel in the fact that they do not believe that African Americans have a place in the United States. They will wish that we would go back. They'll push legislation. They'll lobby. They'll spread hate. We see it all on TV. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that these organizations would not entrench themselves into police departments, into
Oh,
social
yes.
services agencies,
Yeah.
into positions of power where they have the opportunities to affect change on black people in a negative way. I mean, I'm just not seeing it. I mean, a matter of fact, it was an
Yeah.
FBI report that came out not too long ago that actually talked about how the FBI and many other organizations were being infiltrated by Ku Klux Klan organizations and organizations of white supremacy. So, I mean, I mean, if that police department is investigating a homicide that involves a lynching or a hanging, I could see them necessarily stepping back. Well, I know they would. That's their whole agenda. And then the thing that bothers me, though, is that even if this police department or organization that's investigating this potential crime, just because of the sheer nature of lynchings and how that would make your town look, your city look, I could see them being biased because they don't want that type of shadow on their community. And I'm not even
Of
talking
course,
about in a nefarious way. So it's a double-headed sword when it
it
comes to
is.
investigating this to begin with.
Right. And see what the issue is institutional corruption. But here's the thing: I've seen just, I mean, and I say it, and it's not that I'm passing the buck, but I'm saying to really deal with
Mm-hmm.
institutional corruption, you have to deal with it not just from white people, but from black people, or from Asian people. Because if people think that black folks in certain situations don't organize to screw over other people, you're fooling yourself.
But
So
why do we
you have
always go to black people and Asian people? Why can't we just stay on
because
the people who have actually the power in this society,
that's
real raw
because.
power,
But
right?
that's intellectual disingenuous to do that.
Why not?
It's
Why
because
so?
here's the thing: if you focus on one, it's like if you have multiple diseases and you treat just one, well, you still have the rest of them. You have to treat the core of it, all of it, and you have to look at the tenets and methods of institutional, really civic racism. It doesn't just happen with white people. So if you single that out, not only is it going to be expensive to root it out, it's going to be ineffective. You have to treat the symptoms of corruption no matter who it is. You have
But
to go across the board.
with 400 to 500 years of generational power within a certain people, a certain class of people, I mean, they all. This is a white society, no matter how you look at it, right? I mean, this a lot of our laws come from uh, uh, white heritage and white culture. A lot of things comes directly from white influence. So I mean, to have a people who would have such power in an organization, I mean, it's fair to say that we can focus primarily on people who are doing uh, disingenuous things in organizations that are white because they would be able to have more power to affect change, right?
But
I
here's
mean,
the
they
thing,
have networking.
but
They have
right,
more
and that's
networking,
true.
right?
They
I mean,
they may have maybe time, but as far as methodology, it's not going to make a difference. I've used the KKK the same way I've used Black Lives Matter.
okay.
I mean, I
Why?
just
Why
do.
is that?
Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization. Marx wanted to overthrow God. I don't. Black Lives Matter is a sham. I view them the same way as the KKK. Same rhetoric to me. Different
So,
methodology, different history, but same
but
rhetoric.
but Black Lives Matter, and I do. I have some gripes with that organization as well, but they don't have the same history as
Exactly.
the Ku
But it
Klux
doesn't matter.
Klan.
But see, here's
They
the
have
thing.
a when we talking about these lynchings, these 4,000 lynchings, and I know people are going to say like, "Oh, it was invented by the liberals, the Democrats." I get all that, whatever. But that organization directly is responsible for the majority of those lynchings by influencing white culture to believe that black people should be feared, that our people being free, our ancestors being free, created some type of potential safety concern for them. So
Of
they're
course.
directly responsible for that. So we can't correlate Black Lives Matter with the Ku Klux Klan. They're on totally different playing fields.
As far
Black
as
Lives
history,
Matter
but
only lasted 15 years, if that.
I don't care how long they lasted. To me, a cancer that you have for 10 years can kill you quicker than when could kill you just as fast as when you had for a week. So I don't, I understand about the history and all, but if they found out a young black man was lynched tomorrow, they're gonna look at the investigation that happened today. And I understand the historical context, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
like a lot, oftentimes, the black people, we go get so stuck in history and talk about 400 years of that, we missing what's going on today, and that's what keeps us from moving forward. Not saying you should ignore it, not saying it's not relevant, not saying it doesn't have to leave lasting scars, but goodness,
What would you need to see? What
in
would you
terms
need to
of
see in order to believe? And I'm just talking. And I'm just asking you this question. It's not directed in any way, shape, or form based off of what we were just talking about. Just a simple question. What would you need to see in order to believe, from an evidence standpoint, that there is a nefarious group of people who are potentially hanging black people for fun, for their goals, for what they want to do as far as their racial ideology, what would you need to see? What would make that turn for you? What
A
type of
lynch.
evidence?
Yeah, evidence of collusion, evidence of conspiratorial actions, something linking saying, "Hey, this is what happened," and things like that. And I think that I'm sure that there may have been instances of that where the evidence was suppressed, but until we have that, it's just kind of like you just speculate. And until you can prove a case, it's just speculating. So I think the corruption needs to be investigated across the board with every race. I don't think you can limit it and have it be effective. There's selective justice, which is one of the things that so many of us argue for, but yet you want to employ it on other people. That doesn't make sense to me.
What do you mean? What do
So
you mean by that? Employed on other people?
it's like a lot of people and a lot of, to be honest, leftists and
No,
politics,
go ahead.
they constantly scream about selective outrage, selective persecution. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want to single out one group and look at them and not look at the others and not treat it as a disease instead of a isolated condition, then you're never going to treat anything. That's what I'm saying. Because the thing about oppression and the things about subterfuge is that they're not necessarily aligned by race or even ideology. It's a matter of method, and you treat what the method is and disable that, and then you disable the machine that way. Because otherwise, we're just talking about history and emotion, and nothing's going to get done that way.
So, do you think that there is an opportunity through this for us to find information that would make us see, like, it's not lynchings, it's just black people are just committing suicide, and that's just it? You think that that would heal the situation? You think that people would just kind of lose that thought process that black people
Never,
don't have to worry about this? I mean, where's the
never.
end result for this?
It's no end to it because I mean the thing is there are people that are going to see that no matter what, especially now with social media. If you have one person out of 100 that thinks something, you can create a trend. So and it should always be a raised eyebrow to a situation like that. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, but I'm saying the way
Hmm.
you deal with it and the way that it can manifest itself, you know, uh, has to be entered into in a certain way for it to be fair. You know what I'm saying? And it happens, but I just think that the focus on nationalism, as an entity, needs to be broader to be eradicated. So um,
Well, I don't know, man. I really want to continue this type of conversation because I'm very tired. You say you're running on 2 hours of sleep. I'm definitely running on not a ton of sleep. Trust me.
right,
Kids ran my ass ragged the whole week out of town, so I
yeah,
do get that. I do want to continue this conversation, man, in the near future because I want to kind of add some evidence in, some key factors, and even talk about this Nolan case, man. I mean, it's a case that is on the conscience of America across the board.
right,
Whether you're a
right,
white person and you say you call bullshit, or you're a white person who's an advocate for black people, or you're an African American person, and you have different ideologies and mindsets about it. At the end of the day, when things like this happen, they bring up automatically the history of this country. And we have a perfect opportunity at this point to address issues and to talk about some of that pain that we've all endured, right? Because I mean,
right,
this is our country. This is African American people. I really feel like as African American people, we have the history that supports the fact that we actually fought hard for this country ourselves. We put
right,
blood, sweat, and tears here before anybody else was doing it. We were doing the hard work here. I really feel like this is our country, and not just ours alone. But I just don't want to be dismissed to say, like, this is not your country. We worked hard to be here. We deserve a place here. And I really feel like we have to have these conversations, and we all have to get to a point of healing. And we can't avoid talking about the tough situations because they're going to hurt our feelings. Um,
right, right,
so, so I really like the conversation that we have. And I appreciate the fact that you are a conservative black man who actually will take a step back and say, like, this is my beliefs in this. Now
right.
I don't agree with all of it. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, man. It's a tough one. This is tough for me because it is a feelings thing for me. I could have studied this shit, all week long, but I was like, you know what? I just want to talk about this. I want to dump onto George. You're a mental health person.
Right. Right.
Let me just dump my feelings onto you.
And I think we really, and when we have these discussions, what I often find is that even though you're a swing voter and I'm conservative, I think we often agree more on points than what we don't, because I think when I said if someone black is lynched, hey, call in the feds right then. So that shows that, hey, I'm cognizant and able to recognize these things happen. Now, if I would have been like, well, it should never be investigated, and then I'd be wrong. But I'm man enough to say, hey, this stuff does happen. I'm just saying, let's prove it. So, hey, when a black person is lynched, or I think with any lynching of any race, because what lynching means, it can be transposed to anyone. It should be investigated federally. It's just what I think. And a lot of people are going to disagree with that. A lot of people on the right not going to like me saying it. A lot of people on the left not going to like me saying it. I don't give a damn. This is what I think.
Well, that's what makes you real, bro. I appreciate you, man. George.
Thank you.
We got some more shit coming up, man. It's dope having these conversations with you. Seems like people like us to talk a little bit. Let's continue this journey, man. And I want you to keep us posted on your shows and your different podcasts that you're doing, man. It's great to see you on the journey. And you are definitely the voice for Black conservatives at this point, from my view. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you.
Take care.
All right. Stay blessed.
You too. Bye.
Bye.